Welcome to the Subjective Professor podcast, where we reject coercion and hypocrisy. It's Friday, July 18th, 2025, episode 441, and we're going to talk about Jumbotrons. I don't know if you've seen that video. Oh, how could you not? Even my wife has seen it, but the video where this guy, a CEO of a company, is cheating on his wife with the head of his company's HR at a Coldplay concert. And, it's supposed to be this kind of cute thing that a lot of people do, but it's warning to everybody who goes to a concert or a sporting event where there is a Jumbotron. And what they do is they pan the audience. And if the cameraman sees a couple, it zooms in on the couple, and you're supposed to kiss each other, and it's supposed to be one of those, oh, isn't that romantic or whatever, that kind of thing. And it's sort of like a souvenir that you can take home and have as a memory for you. So it's kind of a cool thing. I don't know. I don't go to these kinds of things, but I imagine if I did, I wouldn't go with someone who I'm having an affair with. But anyway, so not that I'm not that I have a fair anyway. So I brought it up with my wife and I said, "Hey, so did you see that video?" And she said, "Yeah, I saw that." And I said, it's what's really weird is that how it just keeps going, right? So not only was it yesterday, I think people were sharing links to the video. And then today I wake up to all these memes, and Babylon B even did a David and Bathsheba caught on the Jumbotron kind of thing. So it just keeps going on and on. And I understand it's like 24 hours in the news cycle back in the day would be like people are only just finding out about it. But I don't know, in the Twitterverse, the X-verse these days, 24 hours is a long time to be like a top story, a top meme event. And I would think that if it persists in the news for any length of time, it's something significant, something like the Epstein file, or someone bombed the United States, whatever, something like this, right? But I thought it was weird that you know, this getting caught cheating story was in the news for as long as it was. And it kind of confused me. And I said that to my wife, right? So I mentioned it in the morning, and then I came down at lunch and I mentioned it again, and she's beginning to look at me like, "Are you trying to tell me something?" But I thought it was just kind of odd that it was in the news, in the trendy thing for as long as it was. And then I forget who it was, but I heard someone say that, or maybe it was a meme I saw where someone said, "Hey, uh, here's that video of the guy cheating, and now we all forgot about the Epstein file." And so I thought, oh, yeah. And so what I think it's a lot of it is fatigue of all the bad news that we've been hearing all this time, right? The Epstein list, the continuing war in the Ukraine, in the Middle East, even after the United States has depleted all of its ammunition stockpiles, right? There are no missiles left here in America. We gave them it all away. There are no more artillery shells. We gave it all away, all of we're depleted everything. We're not ready for anything. And yet they keep drumming, hitting the war drums, right? Beating on those war drums. Then there's the genocide in Gaza and the US implication in it. Then the rumors of Trump's son-in-law, Kushner, who is in on the plan to ethnically cleanse that area so they can have beachfront property there. And then you got the news of the BRICS Bank and how they're rising in prominence. Everyone in the world, they want to get away from the United States and all of its bullying. And so they're trying to get into the BRICS Bank and the BRICS system. which is more decentralized. Then you have news about crypto stable coins and how it'll affect precious metals markets, U.S. treasuries, moving forward, the U.S. debt, and this and that. Then you got interest rate rumors, right? Will Trump replace Jerome Powell? And once he replaces that person, is he going to drop the interest rate 3 whole percentage points, right? Which would be 300 basis points. 300, right, makes 3%. Anyway, so is Trump going to do that? Or is he going to leave them alone? Is he going to remove Jerome Powell? Is he going to force him out of office? Or is he just going to bully him into doing something that he wants him to do, therefore shattering that myth of independence of the Federal Reserve? Then you got the Japan carry trade meltdown, right? So the interest rates were lower in Japan, which meant that people would borrow yen and then buy assets in other countries, but once the interest rate starts to go up, now you gotta, bring all your money back and, so close out all your investments in other countries to be able to, basically cash out of the yen, which is creating all kinds of havoc in the financial world. Then you got all this tariff nonsense, and you got inflation worries. You got natural disasters in the East Coast and in Florida, North Carolina, South Carolina. Then you got the Texas flash floods. Then you got money going to Israel to rebuild all of their infrastructure after Iran bombed it to crap, right? But nothing for Americans, right? No rebuilding in these states that have been torn apart by natural disasters, etc. And it just goes on and on and on. And there just doesn't seem to be any good news. And even the deportations is a mixed bag, depending on who you listen to. It's either, yeah, this is what we voted for, to, wow, they're just deporting anyone and everyone, and which is extremely problematic, right? I just thought of it again because I'm trying to get a landscaper to do work around the church, but I can't get anyone to return my calls. And I think it's because all of their workers are hiding out because of ICE raids, right? So, because most of those landscape workers are, I think they're Hispanic for sure. So I'm guessing that, and they're the only ones willing to work in all the poison ivy and the heat and all this other kind of stuff. And so I think they can't get their workers to show up for work, and so no one is returning my calls. So there's no end to the bad news. And whenever Trump opens his mouth, or when government tries to do something, or when the Democrats try to reassert themselves to remind everyone that they still are alive in spite of their age, it just seems to make everything a lot worse. And so this video of the cheating CEO just seems to be the outlet for people to just, unplug from all of that and take it as an opportunity to make fun of someone. And it's tragic, right? It's a horrible, it's really unfortunate, right? So you have two families that are now in the spotlight. Imagine the kids and all their friends and the spouses, and it's just a mess, right? And then so all of the people who had an axe to grind against one or both of them, now they're basically coming out of the woodwork and saying, yeah, they were always like horrible people, which just makes it worse, right? Um, and so it seems like just people need to be able to take a dump on something which is clearly not a good thing, right? So breaking their marriage vows, cheating in public, and then getting caught in such a manner is just is humiliating, is tragic. So it might be that people need a break, right? They just need to take a dump on someone else, or that basically is the attention span of Americans, right? So you're fixated on the Epstein list one day and, oh, look, here, someone is cheating on his wife. Epstein who? Right? So it's this weird phenomena, right? I can't tell which it is, and maybe it's both, a combination of both. But I get it, right? So when I was a lot younger, I wish I could go back maybe and make some different choices. But I remember when I was younger, and I tried to follow politics, and it was just such a mess. This was back in the 80s, right? When someone finally got convinced me to register for to vote. And I was kind of like, why would I vote? I don't pay attention to politics. I have no idea what to vote for or even who's running. So why would I vote? And they say, oh no, it's your civic response. And so finally I was like, fine, whatever. It was like 1985, 86, I don't know. And so I registered, but I never voted because I tried to follow what was going on and it was just such a mess. And I decided, look, I got more important things to focus on, like my life. Why is it falling apart? And so I just turned away. And it wasn't until I was late, oh, I think after I finished all my grad work that I started to plug back into politics. Up until that point, I just made fun of the all of the hypocrisy and incompetence on the government level. And it was fun being in that level. I got to say that, I have no political affiliation. I never voted. I don't care because they're all a bunch of idiots. But ultimately, that hurt me because I didn't know really what was going on in the world. I would just hear a news story and then you get to make fun of it in the way that the mass media was talking about it. But I really didn't understand why things were going on that way. In fact, to my surprise, when I was looking at crashes in the market, in the stock market, I didn't realize that there was a big crash in 1987, which was the year I graduated college. And I don't remember anything. I was so clueless. And apparently the world was falling apart all around me, and I had no clue, right? So I kind of understand a lot of people today and how they're like, well, I don't need to know. It doesn't really affect me. It doesn't bother me. Uh, but of course, if you're like that, the way I used to be, then you end up following the narrative that people give you. In my case, all the racism and greed, right? I spoke just like all the liberals that I went to school with. I did know that government ultimately kind of sucked and that, government was somehow the source of a lot of problems, but I didn't know how to resolve it and I didn't understand. And grad school was telling me, oh, yeah, government's the problem because you have the wrong people calling the shots. And so grad school was all about trying to get people to be politically active, to engage in political activism the right way. And so that basically was what I was learning, the 9 years I was trying to finish my PhD. So I knew government sucked. And so, oh, maybe all we had to do was just rise to power and then we could do things the right way and all the problems would be solved. But then I realized that freedom is the way. I stumbled on the free market, like I shared once upon a time back in 2005. I stumbled on the free market, and that was it. That freedom was the way out of this mess, right? And it was through the free market that we can sift out and make sense of all the noise, the cacophony, the confused, mixed, relentless turnover in the news cycle. It became manageable, right? Because now you had a principle or a criteria through which, or a lens through which you could look at everything and then come to a better understanding, right? Is it relevant? Is it irrelevant? How important is it? Is it a distraction? Is it something that is significant globally, economically, politically? And it made me think of an exchange. I just started rewatching Lord of the Rings. I'm in the middle of part one. I watch it while I'm eating. So I'm going through like 15 or 20 minutes a day. But there was an exchange in a council meeting at Rivendell, right? So right before they begin their journey as the Fellowship. And they're discussing what to do about the ring. And Gandalf says at one point, the ring is altogether evil, to which Boromir says right after that, oh, it is a gift. Why not use this ring? And obviously, this is not what, no one can use the ring. right? Because only the big evil guy, Sauron, he's the only one who can control it and use it because, in fact, you find out that the ring is Sauron, part of it. And if you look at what is it, Harry Potter, if Harry Potter is more your thing, they had those things, I think they're called Horcruxes, where the villain, the he who shall not be Voldemort dude, poured in parts of his personality or his being into these Horcruxes, right? And so basically that's what the ring was. It was basically part of Sauron, the big evil dude, the villain of the entire series. And that's the theme of the movie, the power of the ring. The ring represents power, and everyone is tempted to use the ring. That is the power for whatever purpose that they have in mind. But anyone with that power, anyone who comes into contact with that power, they are corrupted by it, right? Even the so-called good leaders of the world, it's a temptation for them as well. So Gandalf, the gray wizard, later to become the white wizard, he resists the temptation. They don't even want to touch it, right? Galadriel, Elrond, all those people, they don't want anything to do with that ring because once they touch it, they know they will corrupt, they will be corrupted by it and be taken over by Sauron, who actually is the ring, right? So uh, that's political power today. The ring represents political power today. People might think that it's greed or industry, and maybe that's what Tolkien had in mind when he wrote the series. But I think Tolkien, who lived through and survived World War I, he was drafted and he was in the front lines, and all of his friends died in the trenches, and he survived World War I, and he probably worked this into his book. Like, why are we here if not because of the whim and just the misguided desires of people in political positions of political power? So I think this whole phenomena of power is a universal human temptation, one of many. Like, we're so flawed, we have so many weaknesses, and each of us have our own unique, I have terrible weaknesses, right? And even now in my old age, I have a hard time controlling them, but we all have them. And it's, I think, hubris or arrogance to think that, we're free from them and we have total control over them. I think it gets you when you're not looking. But people who go to Washington, D.C., they are swimming in temptation. People are playing to your weaknesses to get you to do something. And, as perhaps a lot of people go to Washington, D.C. with good intentions, but once they go there and there's just so much money, so many people throwing money in your face, favors, rides, trips, and whatever, that it's really hard not to fall into temptation and be corrupted, so that whatever power you thought you had is not yours any longer, but now you're contributing to all of the problems in society. So instead of making things better, they just make things worse. And when things fail, when their plans fail, they blame the people because they're the stupid ones, right? So the people, because they didn't do what they were supposed to, that's why it failed. And so you have this downward spiral of failure. And we are in an ever accelerating spiral of failure here in this country. And the signs are all around us. But unfortunately, too many of the people that I know are still fixated on Trump or, deportations or something that is only part of the massively huge picture. And to boot, to add to this, the people who really want to control your life, all the, the people who want to point out what you did wrong, who want to try to shame you, who, when they see that you admit that you did something wrong, they jump all over you while they never admit that you did anything wrong, right? These people who seek to control your life, who like to rub your mistakes in your face, they can't even manage their own lives without all of the crutches that the state gives them, right? Perhaps they are making a living from all of the regulations that have been passed. And I'm talking about lawyers. I'm talking about people who have government jobs. I'm talking about people who live on some kind of government, um, you know, check, or they have wealth because of their family or because of their spouse. Otherwise, who has time to poke their nose into other people's lives? I mean, I personally, I just am too busy to do that. And for this podcast, I check out the news, but I don't go up to people and shake my finger in their face. I learn the news because I have to keep up with current events, primarily for the sake of my congregation, for my family, right? And for teaching as well. When students ask me questions, I need to know what's going on in the world. I need to, have an answer when people ask me questions. Even, cryptos came up in my church not that long ago. And if I had no idea what it was, then it would be just sort of like, I don't know, can you make a lot of money from it? But you have to be, at least at my mind as a pastor, you have to know at least as much as everyone else in the room, but you are paid to know more so that when they have a question, you have an answer. I don't like these pastors who sort of only focus on spiritual things, because then what are they going to say about events in the world? Well, they become Zionists for one thing. So you need to know what's going on to be able to give good information for those who are seeking it. And if you remain ignorant, if you focus only on one thing, like most PhDs do, like most pastors do, like most people who are busy with their occupation, with their job, with just getting through life, they're surprised when the next big problem that the government cooks up is smacks them in the face, right? So what's the next problem going to be? Is it going to be a fiscal meltdown? Is it going to be CBDCs? Is it going to be a banking collapse? Is it going to be war in the Middle East? What is it? And if you are just focused on getting up in the morning to do your job and then coming home and watching the game and then going to sleep, then you have no idea what. So whenever it pops up, you don't know what to say when people confront you with your lack of cooperation. So we used to say in lacrosse, when you're playing defense, keep your head on a swivel, right? Always keep looking around. You have to know not just what the player you're covering is doing, but you have to know what everyone else is doing, right? So, and then if you're on offense, the off-ball movement is really important. So as a defense playing defense, you have to know what your guy is doing to either distract you or to set up a play. So you always have to keep your head on a swivel. And so for our part, the application in life would be to sift through the news just long enough to know what's relevant, what might be significant, what might affect you directly, what might affect your business, what might affect future, what might affect the bank where all your money is, either that or what it might be a distraction. And then once you figure out that something is simply a minor distraction, like a CEO getting caught on the Jumbotron kissing cam, right? Then you forget about it and then you get busy with your life. For my kids, I always tell them to prep for the world as it might be, not, you're not prepping for the world as you see it today. And it's really hard as a parent to do this. If you're a parent, you already know that when there's a certain age they reach where you're no longer The advice that you give is no longer welcome, more of kind of an annoyance. Especially, I understand with my kids because that's the way I was when I was younger. It's just you're thinking about something else, and now here's my dad coming and telling me something that I really don't want to think about at this moment. But thankfully, when I was a kid, we had family devotions every night where we would read the Bible, sing hymns, and pray together. And so we do it as well with my family now. And uh, since it's in the context of Jesus, so I get to talk with them nearly every night, and we chill. We talk about what happened during the day, and then I talk about current events, and I draw relationships between the current events and the way we're supposed to live our lives. You know, our ability to be able to do that with our own family and the people that we love is based on our knowledge, what we know, and how much we understand, which is why, especially if you're in a position of responsibility, like an older sibling or a parent or an uncle or a grandparent, you have to learn, right? You have to have as much information as possible so that you become the go-to person. And hopefully that's why you're listening to this podcast, because you want to hear a different perspective. You want to hear what might be another way of looking at all this stuff so that we can just get on with our lives, get busy with the things that are actually important in our lives. So what you want to do is you want to develop a good life principle, right? It could be faith, right? But even faith is founded on a good principle. And if your principle is not helping you, is not answering and helping you resolve and understand everything that's going on in the world, get a better one so that you have access to the information that you need to be happy and safe. That's it for this episode. I will talk to you next time. Have a great weekend.